Hi everyone, and welcome to today's training on implementing conceptual models within the classroom. My name is Carissa Hamilton, and I'm very excited to be here with you today. So again, I just want to welcome you, and I'm excited that you're going to learn more techniques and strategies to implement into your classroom. And I'm excited to get to spend time with you teachers. I just want to go over the objectives that we will cover today. The objectives are define a conceptual model, understand the importance of using those models, define the strengths and weaknesses of various models, define the key components of the behavioral model, and identify ways to implement the key components of the behavior model into the everyday classroom. So let's get started. What is a conceptual model? Kaufman and Landrum described the conceptual model as a complex set of organizing principles, a framework for organizing and making sense of a vast array of ideas and information about causes and cures. I like to think of a conceptual model as each one has a different perspective because each individual is different. My perspectives differ from your perspectives, and so we just have all these models to try to understand each student and each of their characteristics and their situations. Conceptual models are also like a roadmap that show the causes of the disorder, how the disorder will affect the child, and possible interventions. Some people describe conceptual models as a bridge between scientific knowledge, which is like all the research that is done to prove the conceptual model, and education, which is implementing the conceptual models. So what are some conceptual models that are used in education? There are a variety of conceptual models out there, but today we're going to focus on four main ones. We're going to focus on biological, psychoeducational, ecological, and behavioral. So first, the biological model. The biological model focuses on the central nervous system and neurophysiological factors. So it mainly focuses on the brain. Kaufman states that many believe that there is a physiological flaw. So many believe that there is there's a flaw in the brain that is causing the emotional behavioral disorder or the other disorder. Within this model, it is believed that the physiological flaw can be controlled by medication prescription, diets, exercise, surgeries. So they believe that there isn't any teaching to overcome the disorder. Rather, you just control the flaw through these various prescriptions. And today there is a huge debate between medication with students, but this model mainly focuses on controlling that flaw. Now, the limitation with this model is that sometimes the medication is prescribed, even though the physiological disorder is not present. So sometimes doctors just prescribe medication, even though they haven't quite figured out what factor is causing the disorder. We need to try to understand the physiological cause in order to know how to best overcome the flaw. Now, this model is very difficult for teachers to implement because we are not doctors. Our education is not medical school. So we can try to understand the medication that our students are on and try to understand how that affects them, the perspective in the environment. Try to alter our environment or alter our understanding to better help these students. And maybe the prescription makes them more irritable, and we just need to try to be understanding with that. I want you to turn to your neighbor and discuss how can teachers implement the biological model. Just as you guys said, it is true. We can just try to understand the way the medication affects our students or what the side effects of medication are to better help our students. The next model we're going to talk about is the psychoeducational conceptual model. This model combines the unconscious motivations and the demands of everyday functioning skills. We look at the behavior patterns, the values, how the child interprets the events, and the outlook that they have, who are not adjusting well to their environments, according to McIntyre. Factors that influence the psychoeducational conceptual model are motivations of individual, culture, family life, events, and environmental factors. One intervention that is used is called life space crisis intervention, where the professional tries to understand the motivations of the child and how their perspective is of the world and how they are seeing things. This model is mainly seen with psychologists or counselors but it can also be used in the classroom as we try to understand our students and try to understand what is motivating them and what is affecting them and how they see the world in order to capitalize on their learning style and capitalize on their motivation to allow them to want to learn. How can teachers implement this psychoeducational model? I want you to turn to your partner on the right side and discuss it. The next model we'll talk about is the ecological conceptual model. This model mainly focuses on the social context. It emphasizes the entire social environment, which is actually a limitation because we have to think about all the social environments a child may be in, whether that's school, home, community, and try to think of the behavior and social learning concepts they'll need to learn how to change their environment. Maybe they need to learn how to make a friend, so we need to teach them that. But then they need to be able to generalize that at school, at home, in their community. One study that was interesting was done by Weiner. He found out that teachers were having a really hard time implementing the ecological model into the classroom. Only 12% of teachers were tying in what they were teaching to some social skills. He went in, he modeled a certain way of doing it, and 70% of teachers were able to do that. And they saw an increase in their students. So from this, we take away that we need to somehow figure out a way to implement social skill development into our everyday teaching in the classroom. How can teachers implement this ecological model? So now we're going to focus on the behavior model for the rest of the time because I feel like it is the most effective one to implement into the classroom. We're going to watch this video that will better explain what the behavior model does.
Analysis focuses on the principles that explain how learning takes place. One of these principles is positive reinforcement. When something preferred follows a behavior, that behavior is likely to occur again and again in the future. Applied behavior analysis is the use of these principles to bring about meaningful and positive changes in the behaviors of the consumers that we work with. One of the core features of ABA is that it's very data-based.
So just as she talked about, we focus on the positive reinforcement. Kaufman describes two assumptions that fall into the behavior model. The first one is the essence of the problem is that what the person does. So it's the actual behavior. And the second one is the behavior is the function of the environmental events. So something in the environment caused the behavior, and the behavior can be modified. Interventions that are included in this model include applied behavior analysis, or ABA. We have to teach a child how to overcome the behavior, and we use positive reinforcement. Now, it's critical to remember that the behavior model only focuses on observable behavior. Lindbold gave a great definition of how ABA and the behavior model are intertwined and can be used in the classroom. He stated that ABA is a data-driven program that is based on direct observation and measurement of behavior, analysis of antecedents. Antecedents are the instruction, setting, or desire that come before the behavior. Positive reinforcement, the delivery is something that encourages the target behavior to occur again, and effective teaching techniques, such as shaping, backward chaining, forward chaining, prompting, and prompt feeding. Now, it's critical to remember that within this definition, the main parts of the behavior model are outlined. That is, that it's based on direct observation. It's based on the antecedent. We look at the behavior. We have the consequence of the positive reinforcement. And we teach the behavior through effective teaching techniques, which we're going to discuss later on. In behavior analysis, we have this thing called the ABCs that we always look for. The ABCs stand for A is antecedent, B is behavior, C is consequence. We're going to watch this video to learn more about what the ABCs mean. So this is happening before the behavior occurs. We need to think of all these questions in our mind of what event could have caused the behavior. What was going on at the time? What was the situation? Behavior, we have to see and measure. It's observable. Consequent comes right after the behavior. Whether that's the water is on the floor, she cleaned it up, they fixed the plant. This is called an ABC chart, and we use it to keep track of the behaviors so we can See if there's a correlation on days of what is causing a certain behavior. Now, there are 4 functions of why behavior occurs. These functions include escape, attention, access, and sensory. We're going to view them here. Sensory is anything that is calming to the individual. So sometimes we see this as the flapping, the jumping, the stemming. That's the behavior they are engaged in. Escape, we want to escape the demand, the setting, the noise. These are ways to help teach it how to not escape. Attention, we just want the attention from the individuals. Sometimes we see attention as a problem behavior if the child is blurting out, tapping on the shoulders of everybody, not waiting their turn. So with the consequence after the behavior, we need to deliver it immediately. There are positive and negative consequences. Positive reinforcement is when we add something and it makes the behavior increase the future frequency. Punishment is when we decrease the future frequency. Now we just have to remember, reinforcement increases, punishment decreases, positive adds something, negative removes or takes something away from the environment. Now within ABA, or within behavior analysis, there are a lot of teaching techniques that we implement in the classroom, and sometimes it's overwhelming. But something that's great is that we implement these as teachers almost every day. ABA, the most common teaching techniques are prompting, modeling, task analysis, and incidental teaching, environmental teaching. Task analysis, we break down a complex process into the steps. We want a child to learn how to multiply a 3 number by 2-digit number. We break that down, and we teach them first multiplication, 1 digit by 1 digit, and we build upon that. Modeling is when we show the student what our expectations are and show the student how to perform the requirement, and the student copies that. Incidental teaching, environmental teaching is we teach it right when it happens. If a behavior occurs, we teach how to overcome that behavior, what could have been differently right then. Prompting can be done from least prompting to most prompting, meaning it can be done from independent to full physical or full physical to independent. This video shows some types of promptings that can be used.
Point to the pig.
Here she's doing an independent. The child did not get it right, so she's going to do another trial with a gesture prompt. She'll gesture to it. Child did not get it right. So now she's going to do a partial physical where she'll partially guide the hand. The child did not get it. So she's going to do a full physical and guide the child to the correct answer. And she provided reinforcement, the consequence. The prompting can be done from least to most or most to least depending on the learner. Now, there's a lot of misconception about behavior and analysis, and people may not think it works. There's a study done by Lovis that took groups of students, and he gave one group of student ABA services for 2 years and the other did not. He found that in the group that received ABA services, 47% of the students, or 9 out of 19 of the children, were able to be successful in the classroom. Whereas in the control group, where they didn't receive any behavior model interventions, only 1 of the students were able to be successful. This study was then replicated by Cohen. Cohen found that he took 2 groups of 21 students and gave one group ABA services and one group didn't receive any. He found that 6 out of 21 students were able to be independent in the classroom that received ABA services, and 11 out of the 21 children were able to be successful in the general classroom by 3rd grade with minimal supports. He found in his control group that didn't receive ABA services, only 1 of the 21 students were able to be successful. This shows that these behavior models do affect the students and do allow them to be successful. Now, before we go, I want you to discuss how are you going to implement any of these techniques we discussed in your classroom. I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm here to help you, and I'm excited to see how your classrooms change. Thank you so much.